Hi everyone, welcome back. It's been a while. Today I'm going to give you like a recording of a talk that I gave at the Ericsson Design Day. It wasn't possible to record it live, so I'm recording this after the fact. And by now you probably read the title, Figma, Automation Without AI. Without further ado, let's go to the most important thing. What is automation? There's a lot of confusion going on right now where people tend to relate automation with AI. AI has been around for much, much less time than automation has. Automation is actually something really old. But let's start with the dictionary definition. Automation is the technique of making an apparatus, a process, or a system operate automatically, right? So without human intervention. This means that automation can be many things, and AI can be a way to automate things, but you don't necessarily need AI to create automation. Because automation is nothing new. Automation has a long history. Let's just take a little stroll down the memory lane and to the history books, and we see that automation kind of started. The first real automations were the Greek water clocks in 350 before Christ. And we're talking about water clocks. It's not the same thing as sun clocks. So we're not actually measuring like the time of the day. So the goal here is to actually measure like 1 hour or 30 minutes, right? And then you would do that by having like two recipients of water and just measuring enough water that at the end of 1 hour, it would have completely gone to another recipient, and maybe it would have like some kind of like sound warning or some kind of like visual warning that 1 hour had passed. Greeks were kind of like obsessed with time because they started actually understanding that you could measure time, and then that meant that you could actually keep track of like how long things took to make, how long you could spend on something if you had like basically limited time. So they were like the OGs of productivity. Then if we go a little bit further in time, we have the Persian book of ingenious devices from the 8th century that describes several automatic machines. And you can see here on the right of the slide that there's some kind of like water clock inspired, but doing something more. The most important thing is automation really kicks off during the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century. And I'm going to give you now one of the major examples of automation. So we have the Jacquard machine, and the Jacquard machine is like basically a loom with punch cards that would actually allow you to create patterns on your textiles in an automatic fashion, right? Without having to have a very skilled worker making sure that the right needles moved at the right time. So basically, it's a binary system. If there is a hole in the card, the needle goes through. If there is no hole in the card, the needle gets stuck. And it actually, that's the way that you kind of like program patterns in a very simple way. It's actually considered one of the precursors to modern punch cards, to the let's say like modern is a bit of a stretch in the year of 2023, but let's move forward to punch card programming. So you can see here also punch cards. This is how you would actually used to save like a computer program in stacks of these cards, and then you would kind of put them in the system in the computer that would read these cards and actually do whatever you wanted it to do. Would it be like some arithmetic function, some kind of like calculation, or like a complex program? So what is really key here? Again, you see the concept of like punched and not punched. So it's a bit of like a kind of like a call to binary. So zeros and ones. It's not as simple as that, because you actually had different numbers in different rows would mean different things. But let's keep it for the sake of example, the sake of clarity, that you'd have like a 0 and 1 the same way that today computers actually work. So what is important to keep in mind? Computer programs are actually automations. Like that's what they are. Like they are a way to automate tasks, to automate things that we want to do that would be maybe like very intensive for humans to do, or it would take a very long time for humans to do. So let's go at the programming 101. So it goes this way: a computer program, right? You give the computer a set of instructions. First do this, then do that. If this thing happens, do this other thing, and so on and so on and so on. This could be very simple, very complex, depends on what you're trying to achieve. So if computer programs are automations and AI can write code, does that mean we can automate with AI? Yeah, we can automate with AI, right? And no, it kind of depends. It could be, like, if you're in luck, it could be that you could just use AI to automate some design task that you have. But the problem is AI is not really magic. So what we currently have is called generative AI. It's mostly good for things like writing average quality text based on a lot of training data and just scrubbing existing online content, right? So just going there and copying and remixing and putting different configurations of that, like maybe like 3, 4, 5 sources together into something that looks like an original text. And then it does the same thing for images and videos. It pretty much remixes human-generated content. And yeah, AI can code, right? Not really. Like, AI cannot really code. What AI does is it understands the patterns in all of the data that it got. And because programming is very logic, the AI can get a fairly decent degree of understanding of what code is. But the problem here is, if what you're trying to solve has been solved by someone before, somewhere on GitHub or Stack Overflow, you're in luck. But if it's like a new problem, or in this case, like imagine a design task, you're not going to get a lot of design tasks automated on basically a developer-friendly platform. And you won't have a lot of designers that there's no really place for AI to go and learn how to automate design tasks. And you still need some knowledge of code, because you need to refine, reprompt, ask for like more clarification, and then even run this somehow, somewhere. And I don't know. I've seen many people trying to just do this from scratch using AI, but the problem is, like, they always miss to say that they actually know how to code, and so they actually know what to ask for, and they actually know where to go find it, like how they should instruct the AI to do things. And then there's like some leaps of logic that are done for the sake of the demo, so that you would probably not know the answer to, or the AI might not actually give you a good one. So thing to keep in mind with AI is, like, AI can copy and remix if there is data. So if data is, you're not in very much luck here. So like if AI is not going to be your savior, your one go-to easy solution, you could learn how to code. No, I'm kidding. Sorry about that. Knowing how to code, great extra skill to have as a designer. It's a superpower, to be honest. But learning to code is not a walk in the park, even though I would say it's not as complicated as some people would like to think. It's something you can learn. It's something you can learn to do in a very decent fashion without actually being a front-end developer or a software engineer, and will actually like help you doing your design work. But the thing is, designers already have like a lot of skills to learn as it is, be it like user research, be it analytics, being data driven, having like soft skills. So there's a lot the designer needs to get good at. And so asking someone to be good at code or even learn code when there's kind of like still learning all of that other stuff, it's a bit of a stretch. And, you know, it's only for people that really want to, or people that are really interested in the topic, right? You're really interested in learning to code to do something with it. In my case, I think I started very early on when the web started happening, and I created my first website, and then it was motivated by like this lack of a pixel perfect detail on the implementations of the designs that I was creating. And then I started just going into there and like doing a pull request and doing the last touches myself. Otherwise, they would never actually be done. So what you can do is actually you can ask your dev. I mean, we don't work alone. Like, you work with developers pretty much all day, I bet. So explain your repetitive tasks to your friendly neighborhood developer. Show them an example of a design automation. You can find several of those on this YouTube channel. And with some luck, and if you have a good relationship, this person will probably figure out a way to help you, or will tell you like, okay, what you're trying to do is actually not doable, because this is actually not only a repetitive task, it actually requires some in-between things that computers are not good at. But most of the times, if you think about like doing something very repetitive, like importing like 200 icons from an icon set and putting them on your design system, that's literally always the same task that you're doing over and over and over again 200 times. So that is like ripe for automation. But enough theory. Let's get practical. We have example number 1. And the use case is we have a recurring Teams post that we want to send to a channel. So in this case, every Wednesday, I want to send a "What are you working on?" reminder on the design team channel. The idea here is like, it's just like share a screenshot of what you're working on so that we can actually get aligned or at least inspired or motivated by what everyone is doing, assuming that most of the times it's better than what you thought. And there's 2 ways to go at this. You could just manually post every week, put some calendar event, and then get reminded every week to post always the same message, and then go find the message that you copy every time and post it every week. Or you could just use a tool like Power Automate or Zapier. I'm using Power Automate here as an example because that's what I can actually use at my job right now. And so you're seeing here like the start page of Power Automate. It's included in Office 365. That's why I can actually use it, because we use Office 365 and Microsoft Teams and all of the Microsoft tool suite. And you can see here, you actually have an automate, like an AI prompt here. The problem is like, I don't think I've ever managed to get any of my automations on Power Automate done via AI. I tried a few times and I'm like, okay, I just lost 10 minutes and it didn't get anywhere, and I could have done this in basically 2 minutes. It's that simple. So here's an example. Remember what we wanted to do? We wanted to post a message every Wednesday at a certain time. So what you first need to do is you set like a recurrence trigger. So every calendar moment that you defined, so every Wednesday, every week at 2, let's say that, do this action that comes after it. And the action is very simple. It's just, as a user, post in a channel, in a team, and then the message that you want to show, and the subject, then you save, and voila. Every week you're going to get this message delivered to your team. No more manual effort there. And then you can focus on maybe like going there and being one of the first people to share, which is much nicer than doing the same repetitive task every week. Let's go to example number 2 now. This one is a bit more practical for designers, less of a design ops use case, more of like a designer use case. So this one is about automation in Figma. In this case for design systems, but it could be just for normal like pattern library or just some kind of like brand guideline. So we want to update the color tokens documentation with just one click, right? And to do that, we could have 3 ways of doing it. We implement a plugin using the Figma API, which requires a lot of effort. You need to create the plugin, you need to publish the plugin, you need to write React code and make sure that everything's working, and it's a bit of an effort. Then option number 2 would be to simply Figlet plugin. And what Figlet is just like this sandbox. I will go into some details about Figlet right after, but this is the nerdy way. And then you could code visually with the Automator plugin. let's go check Figlet. So this is the Figlet page on the Figma community. What Figlet is basically like a code editor that opens on a modal, and then you have full access to the API without having to like create any JSONs or any builds or anything like that. So you can then easily like publish your automation or your script towards the community, and then anyone else with the code can run this whatever thing that you wanted it to create. Automation could be not an automation, could be some kind of other application. Since it's code, there's no limits. And then we have Automator by Diagram, and Diagram was acquired by Figma, so now it's actually part of Figma. Well, it's still a plugin, but now it's like basically free for everyone to use and for everyone to import automations without the limitations it used to have, which was you needed to pay to actually get more than one automation at once. So now it's like a pretty good option, pretty solid option for automation. But it's demo time. Let's reveal that we were in Figma all along. And let's start by showing you what we're going to be working on. And that is the style tokens documentation components file on the Figma community. This is something I created. It comes basically with the Pantone style color chips and some typography components, so you can use them to document your colors and your typography. And then you can use an automation that I provided for free here on this link at the bottom on the description. And basically you set up your color documentation, your typography documentation, and you run a plugin, the Automator plugin. You import my automation there, and it just click once and see the magic happens. But let's see the magic happens instead of just talking about it. So to run the Automator plugin, we're here on the sampler page because we have somewhat of like a very simplified case of showing different color chips that you could assemble in an auto layout to get like documentation. And we go here, and then we click plugins and we look for Automator. We run Automator, and then the way this goes is, if you have the automation, like I do here, fine. But if you don't, you click the settings, and then you import from JSON. So you basically import the JSON file to Automator, and that's the easiest way to get an automation inside. There's other automations in the Automator community, or you can get mine from the Figma community. So what we have is update the style tokens docs. And now if I click it, you're going to see something, which is you have placeholders here on the color name, placeholder on the X value, placeholder on RGBA, placeholders here on the typography also. So you see like font family and weight, font size, line height, letter spacing. And when I click it, you see that something happened. You see a prompt that says finished automation in 1.2 seconds. And now, if you look at it, you see that we actually got the color style name, the X value, the RGBA value. Let me just zoom in a little bit. And you see that basically I have everything. Even have opacity on this one. And that's pretty much what you would get even if you had like 200 colors on the page. Of course, it would take some more seconds. And that is one of the drawbacks of Automator against like Figlet. It's a visual editor, but it also takes longer for the automation to run. And I think Figlet is a bit more instantaneous because the connection with the API probably is like deeper. But I'm just doing assumptions. Let me Control Z to show you a little bit of what goes inside it. So you see that inside the automation we have find everything on this page that is called a type chip, right? So it's a type chip component. Find everything on this page that is called color chip component, or layer, whatever you want to think of it. Then for if you find everything that's called a color chip, you set that as a selection. And then for each thing in this selection, or in code land we would call it an array, for each instance on this array or item in this array, you're going to do always the same thing. So you're going to find one layer where the value, the name of that layer, so where the name of that layer is color style. And if I zoom here and I show you here on the left, color style is where you apply either the color style or the variable. In this case, it's a style. And then what you do from that is, if it is a variable, do this. If it is a style, I'm going to show you the style because it's a bit simpler. If it is a style, you're going to set basically a code variable and not the Figma variable. So a code variable is just a way to store a certain value, be it a string, text, or an integer, which is basically numbers, or a boolean, which is actually just true or false. It's like a condition that can only be one or two things. And then basically in that variable called color name, we do a little bit of more advanced code stuff to actually get the color style. There we go. Actually, I think I showed you the variables. Okay, sorry about that. Let me go back to see the styles. Yeah, much simpler. Get style by ID, which is the more direct way to get styles. In variables, you need to do a little bit of extra programming to get it. Then we already stored like the value of the color name. So you set that as the name, and then you want to take basically the color. You want to get the value of RGB, and then you want to get the opacity. Then we go outside of this and we find one layer in the color chip. So we're still at the one element of that group level. You want to find one where the value is name. So this one inside the footer. And then of course you want to set the text to be the color name that we set on the color name variable. And the same goes for find the layer where the value is X. And then find one where the name is value. So first, there we go. First text, and then this is the one you want to set the text on. Then you set the text. You do a little function called RGB to X, because that's how you get the X value in Figma. And the same goes for RGBA. Of course, it has to be a bit more. Find the RGBA layer, then find the value, and then you need to separate R with the comma, G with the comma, B with the comma, opacity with the last value. And you can see here that these double curly brackets basically mean like a code variable. And that's how you get, in short, this automation to work. Let's just go quickly back to the presentation just to show you that it's a wrap. That's pretty much that. And of course, because you're not live, you cannot ask me live questions, but feel free to use the comments to ask me some questions. And make sure to check my other videos about automation. And let me know if you liked it. Put a like, consider subscribing, and I hope we will see each other very soon. Have fun, and see you later.